Generous, loyal, and loving, she is strong and serene, able to take unusual risks, dealing actively with the consequences. Hi everyone, I'm Naomi Becker, and welcome to this week's episode in the 52-week Women of the Bible, and we are using Jean Lisa Suarez's Bible study book. This week we are diving into the biblical character of Ruth, and my research showed me that Ruth's name means friendship, and I truly believe that is a great representation of probably what she was really like. Our key scriptures this week will be from the reading of Ruth, chapter 2 through chapter 4, and also in Matthew chapter 1, verse 5. So before I get started in the reading, I would like to remind you to grab your free micro Bible journaling printable and all of your supplies and get them ready, because we will be journaling together in our micro Bible after the reading. And if you haven't grabbed your free printable yet, you can do so by finding the link to everything that most things that we use, but those free printables and the micro Bible that you see me using right in our description. So go ahead and grab that. And when you sign up, you get all 52 printables sent straight to your inbox each week. They drop each week, starting back with Eve. So we go through this series as if it was your first time. So your first printable will be with Eve. So you'll want to go back to episode 1 and just kind of work your way through as they come to your magically in your inbox each and every week, because that's the order that they do. And that's the order, if you join our Faith Pod, that's the order that they open up in the Faith Pod as well for you in the deeper dive over there. So let's get started in our reading all about the biblical character of Ruth. And Ruth, the Moabitess, remember we learned last week she's the daughter-in-law of Naomi. So she told Naomi, let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor. So Naomi said to her, go ahead, my daughter. So she went out and she began to glean in the fields behind the harvesters. And as it turned out, she found herself working in a field belonging to Boaz, who was from the clan of Elimelech. Remember, we learned that last week. So then Boaz announced to the elders and all of the people, today you are witnesses that I have brought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahlon. I have also acquired Ruth, the Moabitess. So Mahlon's widow as my wife in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property so that his name will not disappear from and among his family and from what is owed of the town rewards. So today, as you are witnesses, so this is what they did in that time, in that biblical time, to when somebody's family died. So Boaz took Ruth, and then she became his wife. And then he went to her, and the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. So it seems happiness did come from some tragedy for Ruth. So I want to get started. Let's get started in our creative time together and change our views. So grab your stuff, pause your video, whatever you have to do to get ready, and let's get started in the down view.
Okay, as we get started here, I'm just on my back page here, in my mini Bible, I already had all this stuff with Ruth, so I'm going to go ahead because these next 2 pages in my mini Bible are all about the story of Ruth and Boaz, so it will reflect our printable, our micro card today. So I'm just going to go ahead and work with this. And as we get started with our questions, in our first group of questions, I'll be chalking and kind of putting my stickers together as we talk. So the first group of questions was really, what was Ruth known for and what her reputation was, and which goes, as we know her, going to the field and kind of maybe what her work was like. Well, we think back on Ruth, and when at first glance, when we see her, she was a young widow whose husband had died, so she didn't seem to have any self-pity or anything, and she didn't really manifest in like bitterness or anything of that nature. Said she kind of gripped the heart, and she loved her mother-in-law Naomi, as we saw. So she was a mother, and the 2 daughter-in-laws, so as we saw, they were bound together with the grief of all of the death of their husbands. They'd all died, so they found consolation in each other's company, even though Naomi was one of God's covenant people, while Orpah and Ruth were pagans. So when Naomi decided to return, as we know, Ruth told Naomi that she wasn't going to go back to her home. She was going to stay with her. So then we see that what happens is, Naomi sends her into the fields, or to her people. So they go to Naomi's people, and she's going to, as we know, glean in a harvest field, followed the reapers, and they gather everything that's left behind. So God designed everything perfectly that she would meet Boaz, which was a godly landowner and probably very wealthy, and who was also Naomi's relative. So Boaz was kind and was friendly and with his reapers. And when he discovered Ruth working in the field, which was perfectly normal, as we go over the questions, that was perfectly normal for that time and custom to do so, especially when they were these ladies were widowed at this time. So he also arranged for her to eat at his table. So Ruth was really grateful for his kindness and reported all of this to Naomi. And when Naomi heard of Boaz, she recalled that he was a kinsman of her deceased husband, and she knew the Levirate law, which had said that when a husband died without an heir, the widow's brother-in-law was obligated to marry her so that their child might carry on the family name. And since Ruth had no brother-in-law left, the nearest kinsman would be called upon to act as the redeemer. The Kinsman Redeemer is really quite a story. I mean, this whole Ruth and Naomi story, this is quite the love story. This Ruth, I love the whole book of Ruth. It's really kind of the book I like to read around February. It's just because, I don't know, it just, to me, is truly that kind of a book. To me, a true love story, all created by our Father. So anyway, Naomi, as we saw, encouraged Ruth to find where Boaz slept overnight and lay at his feet. And this was custom, as we get in our second group of questions, laying at the floor. It's asking us what we think about that. Well, I mean, at this time, these customs are, they are different than from what we know, for sure, but it wasn't uncommon for the customs at this time. And the women were doing what they had to do to survive, basically, is what we're seeing. And God was taking care of them in doing that. Just kind of placing my stickers around. See what kind of thing I want to do here. So then our next group of questions is, about the wedding. It was probably, then we move on, of course, actually, we after they reaped in the field, they went to the dinner and they arranged for it to eat at the table. Ruth was really, really grateful for the kindness and reported Naomi. Naomi heard Boaz and so they were encouraged to find after where he slept. She slept at his feet. And then God blessed the union. And then they became married and blessed them with a son. Now, as we go on to learn later on, they're going to get married. And from this whole story, we're going to get our Jesus down the line from this beautiful story. So, and our questions is kind of ask, what did you think? Who was the happiest at the wedding? Well, who knows? I would think everybody would be happy. It was probably just, God can just do wonderful things. He can just change things when we just least expect it. And when we don't know what's happening, and that's the nice thing about our Father. He's already got our lives all planned out, doesn't he? Before we even know what's going on sometimes. But so I would think everybody was quite happy with this union. And we learned that at the feast of Pentecost, that the Jews read the story of Ruth, and this is very appropriate because Ruth can be a picture of the church, which was actually born at Pentecost. Ruth was a Gentile, and she was grafted into the Jewish nation, and she was a foreigner, but she chose to accept Naomi's God, and thus became part of her inheritance. And Ruth made a clean break with her natural family and never went back to them. And the church is composed of, regenerated Jews as well as Gentiles who have been grafted in. And so by the grace and provision of God, Ruth became the bride of Boaz, a type of Christ. And he found her in the field, which was white unto harvest, and bestowed his love and mercy upon her. And she then came into the special relationship with him, not because she deserved it, but because he was willing to pay the price of that kinsman redeemer for her. What a beautiful story, isn't it? I'm just kind of see what a few stickers around on this second page here, and we'll probably fun stickers. Alright, I think that's about it for my page. I don't think I'm going to put any glitter or anything on it today. I think I'm going to leave it as that.
Well, I just love the story of Naomi and Ruth. I just love the story so much. And again, like I told you last week, I'm sure that you can see my enthusiasm for them. And I just really enjoy studying these women together, and I hope you do too. So I want to once again give a shout out to my team behind the scenes at Y.O.U Ministries that keeps everything going for us. And just if you would like to dive deeper into these women, into their story, their legacy in prayer, all of that stuff, join us over in the Faith Pod. It's $5 a month, an extra 20 printables a month, plus a little deeper dive into their stories. But not only that, you become part of the bigger picture by supporting all of these families behind the scenes and giving them income to support their families. And that's what Y.O.U Ministries does. One of the things that we do is help support these workers with their families who create our digitals and edit our videos and whatnot. So join us over there. And don't forget to check out our podcast, Almighty God and the Gospel Girl podcast. You can watch it here on YouTube or listen to it on any of your favorite platforms like Anchor, Spotify, all of those. All right. And hey, subscribe to my channel. Hit the bell for notifications so you get the notification every week. And don't forget to come back here next week as we dive into, I believe it's going to be Hannah. See you then. This is Tammy Becker. Bye.